Hi guys. Um, I'm going to live review the Nila Colori watercolors. But before I do that, I want to try and find the settings for my camera because I'm not really fond of the image now. Um, I just see somebody came in here and I am about to start filming, except that I'm not really pleased with the light, so I'm going to adjust my light just a little bit. Oh. Um, hold on here. Okay, okay. Yeah, we're getting somewhere. Okay. It's just a bit new to me. I haven't been live that often, and I have to check out how I do it. This is the first time I did a planned live video, so um, I think I'm fine now. The only thing I don't like is that, oh no, if I remember correctly, you can read what it says here, right? Because, oh, hello, Wies, and XRS Art, hey there. Um, can you read what this says? Are the letters in the right order for you? Because for me, on my screen, they are in mirror view, but I can't seem to change that, so we'll just have to make do with this. And they're good. Okay, Beast. Thank you very much. Okay, then I'm gonna swatch the colors. I did a review for Nila Colori for their first collection of colors. I think it's about a year ago now. And what makes them really special is that they work with natural pigments, and many of the pigments they use are the original pigments that many brands have put aside for some reason. Sometimes with light fastness, sometimes it's because chemical pigments are simply cheaper. Some are a bit more stable. But these colors are they have a really beautiful look, and they work really well. Um, this is a swatch I made last year, and the colors are, I hope you can see it just as well as I can. They are a bit, how can I say that, with an autumn atmosphere. They are a bit darker, and so, like, the red is not very bright and doesn't really pop. But in this whole palette, it looks really beautiful. And this is a mixing chart. I will make that of the new colors too, but that's going to take hours. So I'm not going to do that live on video. I will do that, maybe in a few runs even. Because they started out with 12 colors, and now their entire collection is now 28. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, yeah, they are really nice and warm, these. They are really great to work with. And um, what I did with my previous mixes is that I dropped some paint in a wet surface to see how it behaves, because there is a lot of granulation in the paints. And um, well, I love granulation. I work with it a lot. It's for my work. It's the basis of my work. So this brand really charmed me straight from the beginning. And I do like their warm color collection. But now they have different colors added to that, and some are, really great, because I made a very little test piece, not for myself, not as a swatch, but because they sent it to me with a little piece of paper on top, and some colors, the paint stuck to the paper. So I gently rubbed it off with a wet brush. So I already tried a little color, because, who can resist? Okay, so what I'm going to do is, you can see I made a color chart here for 28 colors, which is their complete collection. I have the old colors lying here in a corner, and I will add them later. But first, I will just swatch the new colors, because I want to emphasize those, because you haven't seen them before, I think. By the way, this is the box that they come in. It's a really pretty, gorgeous box made of natural materials, except for the inlay, which is a foam where you can put the pans into. And well, it's really super charming. I mean, I think it works really well, because it's kind of strange, because I have an empty box here by Schminky that I might just put the entire collection into, because it will fit into this one box. But I'm not sure, because I really like these little boxes, because when I open my drawers, I can take them out immediately, because they're so easy to recognize, and all the other paints are in a black box. So, okay, here we go. To test flow, I first wet the area. This is yellow earth, and to me, flow is very important. If you've seen my reviews before, for instance, the Magello, I was not too fond of the Magello, even though they're very intense and lovely colors. The flow of the paint was poor. So here we go. This paint just, comes off pretty easily. Some colors are a bit harder than others. And I didn't wet these pans first. This is like a really light yellow ochre. I have to be careful not to cross the lines, because I don't want to contaminate. So I try to, when I swatch and I have enough room, because these are only 28 colors, I like to have some gradient in it, from very diluted to an almost pure color. So that's the yellow earth. And it's a bit of a creamy color. So it's semi-opaque, or rather opaque. It's lovely. It's a gentle color. I think this will work super great in a skin colors, if you want to do skin tones. So now we move on to golden ochre. I'm working on Schuller's Hammer number 10 watercolor paper. I'm doing that because I tested the first 12 colors on this paper. So if you want to make a good comparison to the other colors, you need the same paper. Okay, golden ochre. This lifts a bit more easily. It's much more intense. But is what I find with earth colors, all the colors that have earth in them, is that they are a bit harder to lift. This really is a beautiful golden ochre. This misses the vibrancy of a quinacridone, but then again, quinacridone is not a natural color; it's a chemical color, and I like it. It's beautiful. So raw sienna. This is a color I use a lot for portrait painting because ochre tends to be rather yellowish, and you do not always want a yellow undertone in a skin tone. So then I move on to raw sienna, which is usually a more subdued color, as it is here. And the way the pigment moves into the structure of the paper, or the texture of the paper, I like it. Okay, so I hope my camera shows the colors well, because that's always a bit difficult. People always ask me when I do a review, can you please put up a high resolution photo on your blog? And I do that. But the problem is you never have any guarantees about color. If you've seen my reviews, if you've seen my swatches before, you will know, because I've said it before. But you know, with the everybody's got a different setup. The settings of your screens are different, can be different from mine, or you know, even if you visit a computer store and you look at all the screens, you can see different colors and different resolution in them. So it is very hard. I can never ever get it across to you the way it is. It's very hard when you want to reproduce your art. It's always a struggle. This is burnt sienna. It's oops. Oh, I have to clean that. This paper does not really allow a lot of flow. It is not the paint not flowing. I found this paper to sort of pull down the pigments a bit. Okay, so I need to clean up the little mess I made, which is a good test to see how staining a pigment is, and usually it's not too bad. Okay, especially since the color that's going to be there is red ochre, so it probably won't show. Okay, so Ercolano red, Hercules red. Ercolano red. I like the name, and it sort of presupposes a very intense color. Let me see. Hi there. The autofocus is getting in the way. Okay, you're having problems with the autofocus. I can imagine. Give me a little time. I will see if I can change that, because I have been fiddling with the settings of my camera a bit. And the thing is that, okay, autofocus is now off. Okay, so this is the best I can get. Is it good enough? Or else I'll have to raise my camera. Is it good enough? Oh, hold on. It was you that got me into watercolor, and then you Smith. Oh, I'm so sorry. I probably made you kill your piggy banks. It's Animals Day today, and I have been held responsible for killing people's piggy banks. Sorry if I did. Can you let me know, Paulo? Is it okay now? It's not, we're not going blurry anymore, right? So I'm still in a learning curve where the live videos are concerned. So, and the thing is, I hope you can hear me speak well because my screen is on my left on that side. So I have to turn my head around to read your remarks and then move back here. So if you hear my voice wavering off every now and then, it's probably my head turning. So not good enough to see text, but color is visible. Okay, shall I give it a try? Can you bear with me just a little bit longer? Because I can, oops, raise the camera just a little bit. Okay, and because I'd like to get it right. I mean, if we can, why not? Okay, so now no, still a bit. If I zoom in, I can zoom in. Can you now read it a bit? Sorry for being so picky. No, it's okay, Paulo. It's, I really would like to make a nice video. I mean, I can't do it perfectly ever, and I've seen enough other ones do it to see that, a couple of weeks ago I saw somebody do a super perfect setup and super perfect video, and I asked her how she did it, and she invested actually more than $10,000 to get it completely perfect, and she was still investing in more perfection. And it's like, yeah, right, sorry, but this is a passion. It's not, it's not behind a paywall. I'm not, I don't have a professional studio, so I can't do the same as she can. So it's good sound and video. Okay. Some blurriness is present, Mario. Yeah, I was fiddling with the focus. Oh, good. You bought a lot of Daniel Smith. I can imagine. I like Daniel Smith as well. They have super big palette. They have a super big collection. I like this as well. This brand is the Nila Colori, is also it's different, and I like it very much for that reason. So moving on, the Ercolano Red, named after Hercules. So I'm expecting a Herculaic kind of red. And I like it because this is actually a PR 102. And I never, ever use PR 102. I just don't like it. Although I have been advised to use it in some mixes. But I like this one. This was actually the first PR 2 that I like. Trying to get it on a little more intense here. So, and you can already see with this color, yeah, you can see it too on screen, is that it is many of the colors in this brand are granulating, or they have some texture after you've used them, and I like that very much. So now violet ochre, and this is a color I thought I would never use until there was a little bit of glue and paper on this pan, and when I removed it, I had some paint on my brush, and I tried this one out, and I really, really like it. because I don't know if I've ever had a violet ochre before. I've had like Potter's pinks, and to me those always seem a bit muddy. But this one, look how awesome this one is. This is probably one of the best shading colors in watercolors for light colors that I've ever seen, because I'm really curious what this is going to do when I mix it. But I'm suspecting it's going to be pretty damn wonderful. And I can't wait to do a portrait and then to use this color in it, because I think it's going to be great. And I think if you like painting botanicals, this is really great as well for some for the shading and the darker areas. Lee Art, you've never heard of Nila Colori. This looks interesting. Good, good. Yeah, I'd never heard of them either. I came across them last year, I think, and I contacted them. And Carlo, who works there, or I think he actually owns the place, he sent me their full collection back then, which was 12 colors that I will also show you later. It's the white areas. I'm leaving white now. First, I'm showing you the new colors. Then I'm going to add in the old colors. And they are a really special brand because they work with natural pigments. And for some pigments, they even use the old original pigments. And this might... you will have to consider some of the pigments maybe because you know, some natural pigments may be a little less stable than some chemical alternatives. But that being said, these work really, really, really great. I like them. I find that some watercolor paint sometimes seems to be heading towards water-based inks that are too perfect almost. I kind of like it when a paint has a character of its own. Okay, moving on to Ultramarine Pink. And this one, I own another Ultramarine Pink by Dale Rowney, I think. And that one is more like a lilac. And this is indeed pinkish. It is a lilac, but it is pinkish, and I like it very much. I am absolutely 100% sure that if you're into botanical painting, if you like painting flowers, that this one is a super, super, super great color to have. I don't paint that many flowers, but I really, really love it. It's bright. It's bright and soft at the same time. It's just like, you know, the lilacs, the pinks, and the purples that you see in orchids. It's sort of sparkly bright, and yet it's soft and tender, and I like it very much. Then there's Ultramarine Violet. Oh, I won't spill the beans yet, but I love it. By the way, the light fastness of these colors is really good, because I did say when I reviewed the colors last time, there were some colors that were a bit, you know, not sure if they were very light fast. So if you're painting commissions, it's you know, it's always a thing, you know, you need light fastness. But now the colors they've added are light fast, and these two are very light fast, the Ultramarine Pink and the Ultramarine Violet, which is just simply amazing. And this color I find super amazing and wonderful. This is the Ultramarine Violet PV15, and it looks very much in the range of a dioxazine purple, only with the dioxazine purple they are so intense, and this would be for me a very, very good alternative. And also, as you can see, as I think an ultramarine should do, there is some, you know, texture is happening. And I love it when texture is happening. That makes me really happy, because when I work with watercolors, I like to get some texture, because that will give me some grit to work on. Ultramarine Blue. That is also, I always, every brand that I test or that I buy, I have an ultramarine blue, and I never ever use it. Um, no, I don't think you can catch me using ultramarine as a pure color. I always mix it, but because I love the granulation so much. And this is really, really great. Look at that. I mean, wow. I think that this is the most beautiful ultramarine blue that I have. And you can already see how the paint really wants to just settle down somewhere, and it wants to create texture, and it's got a mind of its own, and I love it. I think this is going to be my favorite ultramarine blue. It's super, super lovely, mega intense when you want it to be, but it can also be really, really soft, and still, even when you dilute it heavily, you can see it wants to work some sort of texture into your paper, and that's really lovely. To me, that's why I own so much ultramarine. So I was really glad to find it in the collection that I was sent. And here is a lapis lazuli, and it says genuine lapis lazuli. But when I just looked up about pigments, which I always do before or which I want to do, usually do it before I do my reviews and my swatches, is I noticed it's a PB29, and PB29 is the same pigment number as the ultramarine blue. So I was a bit confused, but then I read that once the lapis lazuli has been ground, the stone, and it's been cleared from any imperfections, then you end up with a blue that is chemically the same. Well, almost, it's so much the same you couldn't discern them. The only way you can discern them is that in genuine lapis lazuli there are pyrite crystals, and then it makes the paint a bit sparkly. And but I am a bit confused because these look different, and this blue didn't seem to granulate as much, so it really is different, I think. But I'm not really sure. I'm not a chemical expert, but I'm so curious, and I couldn't. I did lay down a little bit of color because I also found a little bit of glue on this pan. But I didn't see any sparkle, so I don't think there's pyrite in this. I'm not sure. Maybe it will. Maybe it will come. Maybe it was just because it was the first layer with some. But I'm not sure. I think I don't. I don't think I own the Daniel. I know Daniel Smith has got genuine lapis lazuli, and I do know that Daniel. I have some other genuine stone paints by Daniel Smith, and they do sparkle indeed. I still do see something happening here. I'm not sure this one's got the sparkle, but that being said, long story, it's a different color. It's a bit. This one is much more intense. It's like a royal blue, and this one is a bit more laid back. This one is a bit more going a little bit more towards the gray area, I'd almost say, and I like it. This one is like a boastful kind of paint. Let me see. The same here with the ultramarine. It's just underwhelming sometimes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it definitely is. Every time you buy ultramarine, what I always do is I always check if it is the PB29, because very often they use a different pigment in it, and that's just always underwhelming. And for some reason, some um, some manufacturers, I don't know how they do it, and I don't understand why they do it. They produce an ultramarine that does not granulate. Why would you do that? It's like, for instance, I'm not really sure. I don't know everything by heart because I've got too many watercolor paints now to know it all by heart, but I do remember that the Magenta paints were very underwhelming in that area. They were not what we are used to, and it's like, I grew up in Europe, so I know about the colors that I know and their characteristics. I have an idea of what they should be like. And to me, ultramarine should be granulating, and preferably big time. So I'm just making a little bit of room here because I thought out a system. Okay, so now we're moving on. And now we're getting to a color that is a little bit awkward. Let me see. This is Vivianite. It's sort of a greenish color, and it says light fastener should be maximum. But there is no color number, no pigment number, and it's by hydrated ferrophosphate. So hydrated iron phosphate. No idea. Vivianite. Let's see. I kind of like it, getting into the specifics of a color. And learning about pigments as well, because it never really interested me. When you look at my first reviews, I was a bit like, yeah, blah, blah, all the pigments, people going on being snobs about pigments and everything. But once I did get interested in it, I started noticing that I actually really have a couple of favorite pigments that I use a lot. And it's for a reason. Oh, I like this. This is beautiful. This is sort of like, it isn't blue. It isn't green. It reminds me of a certain kind of stone, actually. It's like a granite, a greenish granite where I used to live as a child, there was this manufacturer in the street of, what's it called again? A stone that you use in a cemetery. A headstone? Is it called a headstone for a grave? Gravestones. Gravestones, probably. And they had all these gorgeous and beautiful stones there. And I would go there as a child, and I would stick my hand into the fence, and there would be these little pieces, these chips, and I would grab them. And just some of these chips you could really look into because they had these worlds inside of them. And one of those colors actually reminds me of this. It's sort of a grayish, greenish, bluish. It's rather an indefinite color, really. Normally, I wouldn't choose an indefinite color, but sometimes they can be amazing in mixes or as a shading color, just like the violet ochre. I'm absolutely sure is going to be wonderful as a shading color. So I'm excited. Okay, moving on. Silla Donuts. Celadonite. It's a greenish color. So what you see with the Nila Colori in general is that the colors are absolutely different from, the regular brands. And I think that they make a really smart move because I am approached by new watercolor manufacturers, well, at least once a month, but more often, it's happening more and more often, and people want me to test paints and what I would like to advise people is when you do it, be different. Make sure you have something different, because if you're against those big paint giants in the world, it's a hard time. You're going to have a hard time. You need to set yourself apart from the rest. This does remind me of Daniel Smith colors. I don't know if they have this one, but I remember that when I was doing the color charts with the genuine stone colors, that they were a bit harder. When you rub your brush into this paint, it feels tougher, harder. And the paint comes off, it's not as easygoing as, you know, for instance, the Ultramarine, which is more buttery and it's more intense on paper too. And this paint demands a little bit of your work and energy. But once you put that into it, this too, again, is sort of like a grayish green, or not a grayish, mossy. But the mossy kind you will find, it's not bright moss, it's not a golden moss. It's more like, yeah, God, what does it remind me of? It's beautiful though. And again, I see the paint wants to work. I can see this ultramarine pink is not granulating. The ultramarine violet is granulating a bit. The lapis lazuli, not too much, but of course the ultramarine. And this one, violet ochre, is granulating. I like it. Okay, so we move on to green earth. Green earth is a color I hate normally. The reason is that it comes off the pan really, really hard. It's super not intense. It's like the shy girl in the back of the classroom pressing herself against the wall. She doesn't like to participate. It's like, it's a paint and I always wonder, why the hell is it in my set? And then I learned, of course, that botanical painters love the color because they can't miss it. And then I even found out that some people use it as a to tone down skin colors, to the redness in skin colors. And then I found out that, yeah, of course, it does have some use. But it's a color I've always detested. So I've been waiting for the first manufacturer to bring me, you know, if I don't like this, it's not Nila Colori's fault. It's my personal preference. What does strike me is it's different. My other green earth look more, they move toward the yellow a bit more, toward sienna or something. And this looks different. This looks like jade. The color comes off more easily than I'm used to. Oh, this actually doesn't look too bad. This is like jade. When you have the real jade stones, you know? It is a bit lighter than the rest. It's not as intense. But yeah. This is not too bad. I like it. Oh, Paula's gone by. Sorry. You love green earth, Weiss. Oh, tell me, what do you do with it? How do you use it? Because I don't know how to use it, except for perhaps toning down things, or because I've seen your work on Instagram. I think you do have quite colorful work, don't you? Quite bright, or am I mistaking that with somebody else? I tend to go a bit overboard sometimes in my colors. Then I did an illustration or a painting, and then I realized, whoops, I might have done better if I had made sure that some areas were a bit more toned down. So wouldn't be a bad idea for me to start using it sometimes here and there. Okay, now we're going to malachite, and malachite, I suppose, malachite is a stone. So I suppose this is a stone as well. Oh, hold on. No, it's a hair. Probably my cat or my dog. Oh, look at that. Oh, this is a Chinese color. Or Japanese, no Chinese, I think. This is one of those colors that, the Gansai Tambi. I have a color, I think it's similar in the Gansai Tambi. It's sort of opaque. It also behaves like the Gansai Tambis. This is almost like a gouache. Isn't that fascinating? How apparently a pigment dictates how the workability is of the paint. I find it fascinating. It's not just a matter of, you know what, we've got some color powders and then we chuck in some some agents and some whatevers, and then every paint behaves the same. Although that's a bit what they did at Magenta, I think. It's a bit, the paint lacked a bit of character here and there. I like the character in this kind of paint. And I'm fascinated by it. It makes me want to use them. These, you prefer mixing your own earth green with PBR7 and PB7 and PBR7. Okay, yeah, that's way more intense. Those pigments, they are more intense. For leaves, yeah. There's probably a bit more toned down version of green as well. Okay, moving on to the last colors of the new collection. This one is interesting because this is Van Dyck Brown, but actually this is the color code, no, the pigment code is NBR8, and it has been replaced by the bigger brands by PBR8. And the thing is that PBR8 is also called Van Dyck Brown, and they look a bit similar, but it's been replaced because this natural, the old version of Van Dyck Brown tends to be a little less stable. However, I've already put some on my other piece of paper, and I love this because, first, because of how it behaves, it likes flowing, and then because it does look different from the PBR8. It's definitely got a grayish undertone, maybe even a little bit towards the green side. And what I like about this series is that when you look at these three colors, the Vivianite, which is a bluish kind of color, the Silla Donuts, and then the Castle / Van Dyck Brown, they are sort of one of a kind, but then in each in its own color group. They are sort of, do you know what I mean? When I say that, they are they go together really well in a certain atmosphere. These colors are a winter landscape. So if you use Vivianite, the Celadonite, and the Van Dyck Brown with the NBR8 pigment instead of the PBR8, this is winter. These colors are winter. And I don't know if I'm going to paint winter, but if you want to paint winter, or if you're looking to find really cool colors to counterbalance, counterbalance, is that a word even, counterbalance? The warmer tones, then this makes a really great contrast. Okay, raw umber, earth, and I suppose it's different raw umber than raw umber earth. PBR6, and I use a lot of raw umber. To me, it's one of the first colors I buy. It's not the prettiest color to impress with. If you use raw umber alone, Instagram won't like you, but it is gorgeous. And it's a color you can always mix into everything. Look, this is a much more vivid color than the Castle and Van Dyck Brown. Oh, there's a hair in this. My cat loves to sleep on my desk, and I really do try to clean the hairs, but they're so fine, and they just, the wind takes them anywhere, everywhere. Okay, so the raw umber earth, gorgeous. But do you see the Castle Gray, the Van Dyck Brown, is drying up really gray. It's much more gray than it is brown, and I like it. And this is really, if you're going to do a winter landscape, I would get these three colors because they are amazing for such a purpose. They remind you of Anton Pieck. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. These colors are all old, so they really do remind you of older art, and they also Yeah, they remind me. Yeah, Anton Pieck is a really good example, I think. I don't know the names of the old pieces of art that I know from, from art history, but these colors seem so uh, dating from those times. I have that wonderful book about pigments, and of course I forget the name when I'm here. It's a gorgeous book, and the writer tells about the history of pigments and how they also reflect the history of man, and that's really interesting. And what I like is that Nila Colori uses some of those old pigments. There is one pigment I am super, super interested in. It's Indian yellow, but then the original one, because it's made of the urine of, I think, cows, and it is said to stink like hell. And but I love Indian yellow so much. It's one of my go-to colors in my palette, and I can't wait to run into a paint that's made with the original Indian yellow, because it might stink, but I'm just so curious how it will really look, because I only know the synthetic version, and that's a pity. Um, you don't recall PB7, PG7? Yeah, I have a PB7 as well. Yeah, it is used up. Okay, so moving on to this is Weld Yellow, and this is a very light yellow. And this one, so these colors that you see now are all new collections. So this is what Nila Colori added to their collection. And now I'm moving on to completing the color chart with the old paints, the first 12 paints in their collection, because I want to have a complete overview of what they have. And you will see they will fit in perfectly. I've already checked, of course. I didn't make a color chart yet, but I couldn't resist comparing some of those new colors that I had to clean up with the old colors that I have. So, oh, I spilt a drop of water there. Okay, now we're moving on to still the grain, yellow. The pigment code is NY14. And the Weld Yellow is NY2. And I really love this yellow. It's a very warm yellow. Had to smell it. Almost Indian yellow, almost, not quite. It's going to be tough not to mess up my color chart now, because some of these swatches are still wet, and oh, I'm always the one, shoving a hand right through them. Now I'm doing it for video, so I'm trying not to do it very hard. Okay. And we're moving on to yellow ochre. Yellow ochre tends to be a rather straightforward color. The only time I had a yellow ochre that really pissed me off was in a Pebeo set, in the student quality Pebeo set. That was so bad. Obviously, it was made in China. The entire set was just, I threw it away. Never ever thrown anything away. First time in my life ever I threw away paint. It was so bad I didn't even want to burden my kids with it. And that also contained a yellow that was an ochre that was super, super horrible. But you know, ochres are really cheap to make. They're quite easy to make. And what I like about this ochre is that it looks a bit creamy. Um, how can I explain that? It looks a bit hazy. So it's got a lot of color, but it's not just the yellow. It's I don't know. It's like it's been mixed with a little bit of Titan buff. It's not because it's only one pigment, but it's it's laid back. It's toned down, and I think that goes for the entire collection of colors. They're a bit toned down. They're modest, almost, I would say, elegant and modest. Or was it a PG7 instead of a PB? Okay. Oh, you got me mixed up there too. Okay, Madder Garance. Rosso di Robia, Garanza. That sounds much better, doesn't it? I don't speak Italian, but I've heard Italian on TV sometimes, and I love how it sounds. I wish I could speak it. I want to learn Italian and Danish. Only Italy is such a warm country, and I'm more of a Viking, so I think I could only go there during the winter when it's not so hot there. Okay, so Madder. It doesn't say Madder Lake. We know Madder Lake, of course. Garanza. What I like about it very much is that this color, just like many of the others in this collection, is, you know, it just allows for some texture. Okay, moving on to red ochre. This is a PR 102. I don't use it a lot, only in mixes. Oh, I hardly use this one. Sometimes when I do trees or something, I might use it, or in a skin tone, although it's very red. It is a gorgeous color, by the way. This is, again, you know, I'm just mumbling a little bit of my own personal preference, but it's beautiful. It really is. I think, though, that if I had to choose between the red ochre and the Ercolano red, I would choose the Ercolano red. It's redder, it's more intense, so it's a bit more fiery. And now we get to a color I really, really, really like. I really, really like. It's cochineal magenta. You shouldn't think about the production process when you love animals. Because basically how they make this paint is they squash these cochineal lice. They are really lice like you can find on your plants, only they have this well, what do you call it? They have the scale on the backs, and they are now what's it called when an animal's got a hard outside? Like a crab. What's it called again? I know this, but I just can't find the words. I pronounce Italian well. Oh, thank you. I don't remember. Anyway, what they do is they squash these lice because they give off this wonderful color. It's horrible, isn't it? Oh, it's so horrible. But it's gorgeous. I'm so sorry. Oh God, and it's Animals Day. Oh, anyway, This is a beautiful, beautiful color. Look at that. This is yeah, what's it called? Mauve. Sometimes in some collections it's called mauve. In some collections it's called violet. But it's definitely a purple that's going towards the. It's got a really red. It's more towards the red than towards the blue. Very warm, very bright. It dries up wonderfully. And you look here, dries up great. And oh yeah, I really love it. It's one of my favorite colors, and also because, as you can see, there's a lot of texture there, and that's not easy to find in this color range. So, moving on, exoskeleton. Yes, let's call it an exoskeleton. Let's say the cochineal lice have exoskeletons that produce really lovely colors. You know, it's sort of like, okay, this is a really bad thought on Animals Day, because it sort of makes me wonder what color would pop out of another color, of another bug when you crush it. I won't, but it sort of does make you wonder. I do know that there is a snail, and I don't remember the pigment it was used for. It was a snail, and what humans did is they exterminated the entire population because of the pigment they could harvest from this snail. And it is kind of horrible. In that sense, it is fortunate that these days they have synthetic alternatives. But yeah, that's just a side note. Mayan blue. Mayan blue. And this is indigo tin. Indigo tin. This is, it doesn't have a pigment code. And people are not really decided on the light fastness of it. It also depends on the way it is produced, how light fast it is. Nila Colori says it is a 4 out of 5 in light fastness, so it's good. And I will have to just rely on that one because I don't know. I haven't done a light fastness test with these colors. Paynes Gray. Visu just said these colors remind you of Anton Pieck. What they also remind me of is medieval miniatures. When you look in very old books, you can see these medieval miniatures, and they were made in a time when not very many pigments were available yet, and they sometimes have a bit of a subdued character where color is concerned, and that's what these colors remind me of. Yeah, I just had to make sure I was working with the right pen. I took them all out because I wanted to avoid confusion. Paynes Gray. This is definitely a bluish Paynes Gray. There is a blue undertone in it that heads towards indigo. It's lovely. Paynes Gray is also a color I always have because it is sometimes my go-to color for shading. Sometimes, oftentimes. Okay, indigo, genuine indigo. Let's see. And here too is light fastness 4 out of 5, and that I believe was open to a bit of discussion here and there. Not this paint, but the pigment, because it's very hard to make a light fast indigo, which is why nearly every brand of paint uses a mix of a black and a blue. And oh, it is lovely. It is super, 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 super lovely. It's been a while since I've used this color, and oh, I forgot how beautiful it is. I love it. Perfect for a night sky or an evening sky. Gorgeous. And it's really different than the Maya blue. The Mayan blue heads much more towards the Prussian blue, then the Paynes Gray towards grey, and the indigo, well, it's just indigo. Beautiful. Okay, Mayan green. 3 more, people. Hold on. Maya green. This too is made out of indigo team, just like the Mayan blue right over its head. Okay, Maya green. I have seen Maya green in other brands as well. Oh yeah. Again, it's a rather cool color. Probably because of the pigment. And it's a very transparent color. I like it. Oh, I've got an artist in mind I should notify of this brand of colors because I think she's gonna love it. I know her work, and her work, she uses a lot of cool colors. She uses a lot of granulating colors, and I think she's gonna really dig this paint. Okay, so the indigo tin, light fastness. You have to check that one out for yourself because I dare not say how anything about the light fastness. I haven't tried. Okay, we're moving on to vine black, carbon black, which I've never had a bad carbon black, I think. It's an easy color. As a user, I don't know if it's easy to produce. I suppose so. I know very many artists who never use carbon black. It's a bit tough to get out of the pen. I know quite a few artists who prefer not to use carbon black or black at all. They rather make a neutral color for dark areas. I do use black. Like I said, I do tend to go overboard a bit on my colors here and there, but sometimes I just want, maximum contrast. It's not very dark. It doesn't come off as easily. It's much more light. But what it does do, and that's why I like this one by this brand, is that, as you can see, it allows for some texture. So that's what makes it rather valuable for me and my work. Okay, so last color, burnt umber earth. So, and then we have their entire collection complete. And as you can see, what do we miss compared to other brands, to the brands who use a lot of synthetic colors? I mean, if you would just compare it to, well, whatever brand, doesn't really matter. But you can see we're missing very bright and vivid colors. Many of the colors are somewhat subdued. There are a lot of cool colors. There are a lot of earth tones. There is no real popping red, like a pyrrole red, for instance, or cadmium. But that's obviously been a very conscious choice by Nila Colori. And it's a very logical choice that makes sense because those colors are simply not natural. If you look back at medieval art, you will find subdued colors It's been a long time before there was a really proper red, for instance, and it goes for more colors. There's been a time that we all used to be dressed in very drab colors because there simply were no pigments available yet to create brighter colors. So when you move through the history of pigments, when you read the book, I will make a high resolution photo of this. I will put it on my blog today, and if not today, tomorrow. And I will also put in a link to the book about the pigments because it's super interesting. And anyone who's watched this video, I'm sure you are interested in pigments as well. If you haven't read the book yet, it's definitely worth a read, because it really gives a very good perspective on how on the history of pigments and on the history of mankind, of what we were capable of the times we lived in, because many pigment discoveries were discoveries because of chemical accidents. For instance, they were byproduce or collateral damage sometimes in certain cases, and so you can see that as you know, after the Middle Ages, there was an explosion of new discoveries, and it's very, very interesting to read about it. And you know, Nila Colori has decided to go back into history and create, or at least is what I think, to go back to natural pigments, and therefore you automatically stick to an old palette. I would say it's how I would describe it, and it's just very, very interesting. So yeah, I'm really curious how it's going to look up when it's dried. But as you can see, there is a lot of texture in the paint, so there is a lot of things happening there, a lot of possibilities to use it, and well, I think you might really like it. Lisa, you say you don't own any indigo. This draws you in. Yeah. Well, you do have to. It's I'm not really sure about the light fastness. Nila Colori says 4 out of 5. I think you should really do a test if you were to use it for a commission. But is very, very beautiful. I think it's more beautiful than some of the synthetic or mixed indigos that I have. This has got, to me, more character, and yeah, I really like it. But the Maya blue as well, it's like it's got, you know, it reminds you of Prussian blue. It's just not as, sometimes Prussian blue is just too strong. It comes on too strong. These are almost gentle colors in that sense. So I'm really curious where Nila Colori is going, if this is the palette they want to stick to, or whether they are, you know, if they keep developing. But it certainly is super, super interesting. People, I found contact with them to be very friendly, and so if you're interested, look them up on the internet. And oh, by the way, I'm not paid to do this. Let me tell you that they did send me their paints. I'm not paid to do this. This is purely my own passion and interest, and I don't review paints unless I think there's something really good in them. So if I get approached, I don't review all the paints I'm asked to review. Sometimes people want, like a couple of weeks ago, this woman approached me. She says, I'm making my own watercolor paints. Can you test some? And she wanted to send me a box of 3 colors, one of which was gold. And, you know, I don't mean to sound, how do you say that? I don't mean to sound greedy, but I can't judge a color based on just 3 colors. But sometimes people who make watercolor paints want to send me something, but they don't want to invest too much in it. And the thing is, then sorry, but I don't review that because I can't say anything about it. I need a little bit more to go on. I need, well, at least, you know, at least about 10 to 12 colors, 8 maybe, but that would be because I need to mix, I need to test their behavior, I need to see a bit more. But Nila Colori did not pay me. I don't know them. They're not related to me. This is purely my own pigment madness, my own paint madness, and I'm just enthusiastic about a brand of paint who they have got character. They've got the balls to do it differently than the standard brands, and I think they deserve a place here on YouTube. So I hope you found this interesting, and I might be doing. I've got a lot of paints ready for swatching and testing and mixing. So, but I can't say upfront when I will do it. I will do it just like now. I will announce my video, my live video, once I know I'm ready to do it. So thank you very much for watching. And oh, hold on, I just see one more thing. One thing that strikes me is that the blues and greens seem very similar in this range. I'm afraid that has a lot to do with my camera, Reese. The light, it is slightly overcast at the moment. And let me see. I don't know if I'm going to make it worse or better, but I'll see if it helps to turn on some lights. Hold on. I will just give, I'll give it another minute and see if I can make it a little better for you. Because you're right, it does look a bit. Can you see it's changing? Oh. Can you see more difference now? Let's see. Oh yes, it's definitely the camera. I am very honest in my reviews. If I don't like something, I will definitely say it. That's why I do not want to be paid to do reviews. I only do reviews for brands that I already know are good or that I like something about. And if I see something here that I don't like, I will tell you, because that's why I do my reviews. It doesn't serve anyone, only the manufacturer, but it doesn't serve us if I do a review here being enthusiastic and then have you being totally disappointed should you order the paint. So no, this is definitely my camera. The greens, they are subdued. This is not your regular palette. I mean, if you for anyone who's working with watercolors, if you are used to working with Talent, Van Gogh, if you are using let's say Daniel Smith or Winsor & Newton, Schmincke, Sennelier, those are, especially Sennelier for instance, are super vibrant. This brand, you don't use this brand for vibrancy. You use this brand because of its characteristics, because it's subdued. It reminds me of medieval colors, and that to me also has its charm. It's something you have to yeah. I think that some people will see these colors and will think, they're a bit boring, but I think there will also be a lot of people out there totally excited about this range of colors, and especially about the opportunity to work with certain pigments that other brands have already chucked away. This summer, I acquired a full collection of old Winsor & Newton watercolor paint pans, and I was thrilled because in it I found 17 pigments that are no longer used by any other manufacturer. And the thing is that they were so gruesomely lovely, and I was really sad to see what pigments they have been replaced by, because they simply do not match the same qualities. And therefore, I think it's really great when a manufacturer decides to pick up on those pigments and say, well, I'm just going to work with all the pigments that are discarded by other manufacturers. So yeah, well, if you like working with Sennelier, these paints are totally different. Sennelier is glazy, it's vibrant, it's super bright. Even the earth colors, everything is bright, right? Sennelier is like, I love Sennelier as well. but this is different, and yet um, it had to grow on me, you know, subdued color, a more subdued color palette. But there is something really great about these for certain techniques to work with, and um, I think you can combine these very well. I think that if you imagine, if you would paint a figure, and if you paint a background, I think this would work amazing for the background, and then to have perhaps to combine it with sennelier or something to have some elements pop. That's what I intend to try with these paints, because I think they are they can be a really good team. You know, they can make really great art. So yeah. Well, anyway, my throat tells me it is time to have a drink and rinse my throat, because I'm getting a bit hoarse. For some reason, I always use my bad voice when I do video, and I've tried to change that, but every time I put on this voice that's sort of a bit heavy on my I don't know what they're called anymore. I knew what they were called, but I don't know. So anyway, I'm going to stop harassing you now. Going to leave you with a wonderful day. I hope the sun's shining where you are, just as it is here. And I hope to see you again in another video. And well, thank you very much for watching. Bye.